What if Prince Harry just discovered that the woman he gave up everything for had a secret past, one only Hollywood's darkest insiders knew? In a bombshell revelation that's shaking both Hollywood and the royal family, disgraced film mogul Harvey Weinstein has exposed what he claims is Meghan Markle's hidden past, alleging she was known in elite circles as a yacht girl, charging $100 an hour for her attention, and using her connections with powerful men to climb the social ladder. Now, with Prince Harry reportedly reeling behind closed doors, serious questions are being asked. What did Meghan hide? What did Harry know? And could this be the revelation that tears their carefully built world apart? Stay with us as we uncover what's been buried for years and why it's finally exploding now. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The world watched in collective awe and fascination when Prince Harry fell in love with Meghan Markle, a glamorous American actress turned duchess, whose modern love story seemed to promise a new dawn for the centuries-old British monarchy. It was heralded as a fairy tale for the modern age, a young prince, once dubbed the party boy of the royals, marrying a biracial, divorced woman from outside the royal aristocracy. To millions across the globe, Meghan was the face of change, progress, and resilience. But beneath the dazzling headlines and choreographed interviews lay whispers. Whispers that grew louder over time, until they became accusations. And now, those accusations are erupting in a way no one, not even the most cynical royal watchers, ever expected. The headlines are jarring. Harvey Weinstein exposes Meghan Markle's dirty past, read one. Another splashed across front pages like a tabloid sledgehammer. She was a yacht girl, and Prince Harry never knew. These weren't your typical online gossip posts. They were sourced directly from shocking claims attributed to Harvey Weinstein, the disgraced former Hollywood producer whose very name has become synonymous with power, control, and scandal. In a world already shaken by deepening distrust in institutions, whether royal, political, or media, the sudden convergence of two names once thought worlds apart, Harvey Weinstein and Meghan Markle, has ignited a scandal that could reshape not just reputations, but relationships, loyalties, and even royal legacy itself. This isn't a rumor whispered behind closed doors at palace parties. This is a bombshell that, if verified, could mark the most dramatic royal crisis since the days of Princess Diana. But how did we get here? How did a woman once celebrated as a champion of modern feminism and racial inclusivity find herself linked to one of the most disgraced men in Hollywood? And more importantly, why now? What is Harvey Weinstein's motivation? What does he claim to know about Meghan's past that others have only hinted at in whispers? In a recent leaked deposition, Weinstein allegedly gave a detailed account of his interactions with Meghan, as well as damning hearsay about her alleged services in elite yacht circles before she became a household name. According to his account, Meghan was not only part of the luxurious but murky world of yacht girls, a coded term used in elite Hollywood and political circles, but she reportedly charged $100 an hour for her companionship. He alleges that this wasn't just industry gossip, but a well-known reality among elite Hollywood power players, one they kept quiet out of strategic benefit and perhaps even fear. Naturally, such claims are explosive. But what gives them unprecedented weight is not just Weinstein's notoriety. It's the implications. If these claims hold water, what does it mean for Prince Harry? For the monarchy? For the millions who believed in the fairy tale image of Harry and Meghan as brave reformers cast out by a cold, archaic system? In this deep dive investigation, we unravel every layer of the emerging scandal. From Weinstein's alleged testimony and Meghan's rumored past in high society circles to the emotional, internal fallout now shaking the walls of the Windsor family, no stone will be left unturned. We will also revisit overlooked moments from Meghan's history, seemingly mundane interviews, carefully crafted PR appearances, and controversial family interviews that now, in hindsight, may contain chilling clues. And of course, we will explore the reactions, from the royal family's stony silence to Harry's reported internal breakdown, from public disbelief to mounting media firestorms. This isn't just a story about Meghan Markle. This is a story about identity, power, manipulation, and the consequences of myth-making in the age of relentless exposure. In an era where personal branding has become as powerful as bloodline, Meghan's alleged deception, if proven true, wouldn't just be a betrayal to her husband. It would be a betrayal to millions who saw themselves in her. So why is Weinstein speaking now? What does he gain from exposing these stories from behind bars? Some claim it's revenge. Others argue it's a desperate bid for relevance or redemption. But even more unsettling is the possibility that he's simply telling the truth, and no one else dared to. The weight of these claims has already started to shift public perception. Internet forums, YouTube reactions, and TikTok breakdowns have gone into overdrive. Royal biographers who once cautiously tread around Meghan's past are now revising timelines and asking new, uncomfortable questions. Body language experts are revisiting past interviews for signs of guilt or omission. Even seasoned journalists admit they may have overlooked critical signs. The real question is, where does this all lead? If Meghan's past has been fabricated, or worse, deliberately hidden, can her present marriage and role as a royal outsider survive the fallout? Or are we watching the slow-motion implosion of a carefully constructed identity? The stakes couldn't be higher. Prince Harry, already estranged from his family, is said to be shattered by these revelations. Reports claim he demanded answers from Meghan after the deposition leaked. Others suggest he's choosing silence, caught between protecting the woman he loves and confronting a truth he may have refused to see. For Meghan, the implications are potentially career-ending. Her brand, founded on feminist empowerment, resilience, and moral strength, could unravel in the face of these deeply uncomfortable revelations. Her Hollywood deals, endorsements, and partnerships now hang in limbo. With powerful media allies turning quiet and former supporters walking away, the Duchess may be entering the most isolated and vulnerable chapter of her life. But there's one thing certain, this story is not going away. With investigations deepening, journalists digging through past contracts, and insiders beginning to talk, more revelations are expected. And in a world where the line between private life and public persona grows thinner by the hour, the truth, however inconvenient or shocking, always finds a way to surface. So stay with us as we piece together this unfolding scandal. In the following chapters, we will explore each facet of Meghan's past, examine Weinstein's credibility and motives, analyze the royal family's muted response, and ultimately ask, what happens when a fairy tale collides with hard, brutal reality? The truth, they say, can set you free. But in this case, it might destroy everything. In the hidden chambers of America's prison system, Harvey Weinstein remains a man whose name still sends ripples through Hollywood and beyond. Despite being incarcerated for a litany of sex crimes that rocked the entertainment industry to its core, Weinstein's influence and knowledge still hold currency in certain circles. He knows where bodies are metaphorically buried. He remembers faces, names, parties, and private deals. And in a world driven by scandal, even the fallen can become powerful again, if only through revelation. That is the setting in which an earth-shattering claim was reportedly made. Harvey Weinstein named Meghan Markle in connection to her pre-royal life, describing her in language that no one, least of all Prince Harry, ever expected to hear. According to reports from a recent leaked deposition related to a civil case involving Weinstein, the disgraced mogul allegedly brought up Meghan Markle unprompted. The environment was already tense. Lawyers pushing for deeper insight into Weinstein's long list of acquaintances and arrangements, asking him to elaborate on the unnamed actresses and social climbers who orbited his world in the mid-2000s. What caught everyone off guard was the name Meghan Markle slipping from his lips with the ease of a man recalling a footnote in a well-read dossier. Witnesses described the atmosphere in the room shifting instantly. Lawyers stopped. Court reporters blinked. Cameras, if present, continued rolling as Weinstein leaned in and, with a smug, almost indifferent tone, reportedly stated, "Yeah, Meghan. She was around. She knew how the game worked. She knew what she wanted. Yacht parties, connections, introductions. She played it like a pro." He allegedly continued with words that echoed through the internet within hours. She loved men, loved the lifestyle. Nothing wrong with it. But let's not pretend she was innocent. She was in the mix. $100 an hour was the going rate if you wanted her attention. Some called it companionship, others called it networking. But it was what it was. The backlash was immediate. Lawyers demanded that the quote be stricken from the record. Others insisted it be preserved, calling it a relevant piece of character evidence given the nature of Weinstein's past dealings. Legal pundits on major networks scrambled to interpret what this statement meant. Was it Weinstein simply deflecting attention? Was he trying to ruin yet another woman's life? Or was he offering up one last brutal truth before fading permanently into disgrace? Media outlets scrambled to verify the deposition's legitimacy. Within 24 hours, Multiple unnamed insiders confirmed that Weinstein had indeed mentioned Meghan Markle by name during a closed-door interview. While the full transcript remained sealed, fragments had already begun circulating. One such line that surfaced painted a haunting picture. She wasn't the only one, but she knew how to make herself unforgettable. She picked her targets carefully. Men with power. With pull. She always had a plan. The implications were staggering. Meghan Markle, the woman who once tearfully spoke to Oprah Winfrey about being a victim of cruelty, racism, and betrayal, was now being painted as a calculated participant in one of Hollywood's murkiest social games. The juxtaposition was brutal. How could the same woman who had presented herself as a champion of integrity be connected, even loosely, to the darkest layers of the entertainment elite? Weinstein's words gained further traction when a former Hollywood party promoter, known only by the pseudonym Eli, came forward to corroborate some elements. Speaking anonymously to a UK outlet, Eli claimed, "There were these events. Exclusive, high-end parties. Not red carpet stuff, deeper, more private. Invitations only, usually offshore or in villas owned by billionaires." Meghan was definitely seen at a few. Not alone. Always with someone established, someone wealthy. People joked she was working the long game. But can Harvey Weinstein be trusted? Legal analysts warn against taking his every word at face value. He is, after all, a convicted felon with a personal history of manipulation and deceit. His motivations are suspect. Some say he brought up Meghan as a way to smear yet another woman, to remind the world he still had secrets to spill. Others argue it was strategic, a move to threaten those who once tried to distance themselves from him when the allegations first surfaced. However, what gives the claims a strange credibility is Weinstein's uncanny memory for detail and his unfiltered candor when backed into a corner. He isn't lying to save himself anymore. He's already imprisoned. And in that context, some journalists and former Weinstein staffers are suggesting that what he's revealing now may not be fantasy, but a disturbing form of confession. More troubling is that several names allegedly linked to the same social circles as Meghan during her pre-suits years are now being quietly scrubbed from various online databases and modeling agency archives. Travel records, party photos, and even old videos are being removed or marked as private. In the digital age, that kind of deletion doesn't happen unless someone feels threatened by what may resurface. Journalists familiar with Hollywood's darker side say that Weinstein wasn't just name-dropping for effect. They point to past cases where his offhand comments later turned out to be horrifyingly accurate, revealing networks of abuse and complicity that had been buried for years. So when he says Meghan was in the mix, it isn't easily dismissed as slander. It's a red flag. A flare shot across the ocean of public perception. Prince Harry, according to palace sources, was informed about the leak mere hours before it hit mainstream media. His initial reaction, one insider claimed, was disbelief and anger. He reportedly contacted Meghan immediately, demanding to know if there was any truth to Weinstein's words. Whether Meghan denied the claims flat out or tried to explain them away as twisted fabrications is unclear. What is clear, however, is that Harry hasn't issued a public statement since the deposition's contents were made public. Royal commentators have speculated on Harry's mental state, especially given his history of emotional trauma and protectiveness over his wife. Some say he may refuse to believe the story entirely, dismissing it as another racist or sexist attack on Meghan's character. Others fear he's beginning to realize that the woman he married may have kept more from him than he imagined. Meanwhile, Meghan's camp has remained notably silent. No cease and desist letter has been made public. No lawsuit filed. No spokesperson has stepped forward to denounce the story as false. That silence, in the court of public opinion, is beginning to sound like an admission, or at the very least, a strategic pause while advisors assess the best way forward. As the Weinstein quote continues to circulate, support for Meghan has begun to fracture. Some former fans argue that her past, whatever it was, is irrelevant to her current life and role as a public figure. Others say that honesty matters, that if Meghan deliberately misrepresented her past to create a brand, then that deception has consequences. There is another layer of danger in Weinstein's claim, not just for Meghan, but for the royal institution. The monarchy, already bruised by accusations of racism, elitism, and irrelevance, now finds itself tethered to a woman with potentially scandalous connections to the darkest corners of celebrity power. If Meghan's past is proven, or even strongly suggested, to involve transactional relationships in elite Hollywood circles, it will stain not only her image but the credibility of Harry's rebellion against the crown. It also reopens the question, was Meghan's relationship with Harry truly born of love or of long-planned strategy? One veteran royal biographer put it bluntly during a televised panel, "Weinstein is no angel, and no one should treat his words as gospel." But if he's telling the truth here, even partially, it would mean that the royal family was manipulated into legitimizing someone who had spent years curating an image for access and status. That kind of betrayal would destroy not just trust, it would destroy legacy. And for Harvey Weinstein, the benefits of speaking out, true or not, are plenty. He becomes relevant again. He disrupts narratives. He proves he still has the power to unsettle the elite. And above all, he reminds the world that even from behind bars, his voice can still incinerate reputations. As more outlets begin to pursue verification of Weinstein's testimony, investigators have begun retracing Meghan's movements from 2006 to 2013. It's a difficult task. Much of that era is obscured by a carefully curated public image and layers of media-trained interviews. But should new documentation, old photos, or corroborating testimony come forward, it may no longer be Weinstein's word against Meghan's. It may become a matter of public record. Before she became the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle was a woman navigating the brutal and competitive world of Hollywood. She was just another name on a casting sheet, just another hopeful actress auditioning for roles that were either fleeting or forgettable. But she was not without determination. Long before Prince Harry came into her life, Meghan had been crafting a story of herself, one that she would later perfect in front of millions. It was a story of hard work, social mobility, and resilience. Yet behind the polished interviews and posed photographs lies a much more complex version of Meghan's climb to fame, one riddled with reinvention, opportunistic relationships, and persistent rumors that now demand to be revisited under the weight of recent revelations. Meghan was born Rachel Meghan Markle in Los Angeles, California, in 1981. Her father, Thomas Markle, was an Emmy Award-winning lighting director in the television industry, and her mother, Doria Ragland, was a yoga instructor and social worker. Meghan had a relatively comfortable upbringing. She attended private school and later enrolled at Northwestern University, where she double-majored in theater and international studies. From the outside, it seemed like a perfectly respectable, middle-class background, and it was this narrative Meghan leaned into heavily during her rise in the public eye. However, her initial foray into Hollywood was anything but glamorous. She started with small, often uncredited roles in shows like Century City, The War at Home, and CSI: New York. During these years, Meghan was hustling, auditioning tirelessly, building connections, and finding any opportunity to get her foot through a heavier door. It was a familiar grind, but according to some industry insiders, Meghan's approach was not just determined, it was tactical. Her breakthrough came in the form of a brief but highly visible gig. A briefcase girl on the game show Deal or No Deal. Clad in a form-fitting dress and tasked with opening cases with a smile, Meghan appeared on 34 episodes between 2006 and 2007. At the time, it was a coveted position for aspiring actresses looking to be seen. But in retrospect, Meghan would later describe the experience as demeaning, stating in an interview, "I was grateful to have a job, but not to be valued in the way women should be." That interview, given to Esquire years later, reveals a moment of cognitive dissonance in Meghan's brand. She was simultaneously playing the game and distancing herself from it. She knew how to present an image, how to look polished yet relatable. But behind the stage lights and glossy magazines, there were whispers in the industry about how exactly Meghan was managing to secure meetings, invitations, and coveted connections despite a relatively modest resume. A source from a talent agency in Los Angeles, speaking under condition of anonymity, recalled that Meghan was relentless in her pursuit of fame. She wasn't the most talented actress we had, but she knew how to work a room. Meghan understood something early on. This industry is built on access, not just talent. If you could get in the right room, talk to the right man, be seen at the rig. Yacht parties. The phrase continues to surface like an oil slick in Meghan's early narrative. These weren't casual get-togethers. They were ultra-exclusive networking events, often hosted by billionaires and entertainment moguls on lavish vessels in the Mediterranean, Dubai, or the Caribbean. These events had become infamous in Hollywood for their veiled purpose, connecting young, attractive, aspiring actresses with powerful men under the guise of social networking. Meghan's name has long circulated in the shadows of these elite circles. She was allegedly invited to at least 2 of such parties, both supposedly during her time post-Deal or No Deal, and before landing her breakout role on Suits. Although no direct photographic evidence ties her to the events, there are blurry vacation photos, social media tags later deleted, and yacht guest lists that include +1s and unnamed female guests. According to one high-end concierge in Monaco, everyone knew the game. Some of the girls were there just for the perks. Others came to be discovered. Meghan stood out. She didn't get drunk. She didn't fade into the background. She worked those rooms. And then came Suits. It was 2011 when Meghan finally landed a consistent role, playing Rachel Zane on the USA Network legal drama. The show gave her stability, a platform, and visibility. But according to co-stars and crew members, Meghan didn't just see the role as a job. She saw it as her launchpad. Colleagues described her as polite, prepared, but always detached. She was nice, said one assistant director. But you could tell she was focused on something bigger. Acting was just one step. She had plans beyond the screen. Her lifestyle changed rapidly after the show's success. She was invited to more high-profile events, started dating higher-status men, and launched a lifestyle blog called The Tig. The blog showcased wine reviews, travel tips, inspirational quotes, and behind-the-scenes glimpses of her real life, carefully curated, of course. Meghan used The Tig to position herself as a thought leader, an aspirational figure. She built a fan base of educated, image-conscious women who saw her as a modern, elegant, intelligent figure fighting for women's empowerment. But even during her Suits years, questions persisted. An old photo surfaced of Meghan at a Soho House party in London in 2014, well before she publicly dated Harry. Another showed her at a high-profile charity gala where she mingled with billionaires from the tech and oil industries. None of these appearances were scandalous in isolation. But in light of Weinstein's claims, they've taken on new significance. There's also the issue of how Meghan met Prince Harry. The official story remains that a mutual friend set them up on a blind date. But royal biographer Lady Colin Campbell and others have long claimed there were layers to that introduction. Meghan had, according to some, been maneuvering herself into European elite circles for years. She had traveled extensively through London, attended parties frequented by aristocrats, and reportedly expressed a fascination with the royal family dating back to childhood. Was her meeting with Harry a happy accident, or the result of years of calculated social positioning? A British tabloid journalist, speaking off the record, reflected on an investigation she pursued in 2016. We were digging into Meghan's background even before the engagement was announced. There were gaps in her timeline, unlisted trips, and unanswered questions about how she funded some of her travels. She didn't come from poverty, but she lived well above her means at times. And no one could quite figure out how. All of this, the yacht party whispers, the high-end lifestyle, the carefully curated image, has made Weinstein's claims far more damaging than they would have been 5 years ago. Even if his accusations are ultimately proven to be exaggerated or false, they have tapped into a deeply uncomfortable possibility that Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, wasn't just an ambitious actress, but a master strategist who played a long, calculated game. Public reaction to this revelation has been mixed. Some fans dismiss it all as character assassination, the recycled product of misogyny, racism, and envy. Others, however, have started to reevaluate. What if the carefully controlled narrative Meghan presented was, at least in part, a fiction? What if her brand wasn't built on authenticity, but on ambition disguised as virtue? As more figures from Meghan's past are contacted, new voices emerge, some defending her, others confirming her social ambitions. A former publicist who worked briefly with Meghan during Suits said, "She was always polite, but very aware of optics. If there was a photo opportunity with someone powerful, Meghan made sure she was in the shot. If a gossip story broke that painted her too negatively, she called in favors to have it softened or pulled." By the time she married Prince Harry, Meghan had already reinvented herself several times: model, actress, blogger, humanitarian. But perhaps the most successful reinvention of all was becoming royalty. Not just by marriage, but by myth. The girl who came from outside the palace walls to shake up the monarchy. Now, that myth is unraveling. And what we're left with is a far more complicated portrait of the woman. Few phrases have the power to stir controversy quite like the term Yacht Girl. In the world of glitz, exclusivity, and international elites, it's a whispered title, never official, never written down, but understood by those who move in the circles of money, power, and influence. It describes a woman who is attractive, socially adept, and available for high-end social functions on private yachts, often as a companion to powerful men. It's not necessarily illegal. In fact, it operates in a legal gray area, a complex blend of paid appearance, companionship, networking, and in some cases, discreet arrangements of intimacy. It is within this world that Meghan Markle's name has begun surfacing again, not through tabloid whispers this time, but through direct accusation, historical photos, and testimonies now being revisited in the glare of public scandal. To understand the weight of these allegations, it's important to understand the system itself. Yacht culture in the Middle East, Mediterranean, and parts of Asia has been linked for years to the entertainment industry. Billionaire businessmen, foreign royals, and celebrity investors often host floating events, parties at sea that are entirely off-limits to the press. These events are where business deals happen over champagne, and where aspiring actresses, influencers, and models are invited under the guise of enhancing the party experience. In truth, many attendees, mostly young women, are brought in by modeling agencies, concierge services, or intermediaries who understand the unspoken rules. Beautiful women are expected to be sociable, agreeable, and presentable. Compensation varies. Sometimes it's a free trip with luxury accommodations. Other times, it's a fee, anywhere from a few hundred to thousands of dollars per day. The latest round of allegations asserts that Meghan Markle, before her rise on Suits, was not just familiar with this world, but actively participated in it. These claims, though controversial, are not new. They've lingered for years on obscure blogs, Reddit threads, and private forums. What's changed is that the accusations have now been repeated on record, albeit indirectly, by Harvey Weinstein, and echoed by anonymous sources with ties to the world of elite event organizing. An alleged former staff member of an elite yacht brokerage firm based in Dubai spoke to a foreign outlet under condition of anonymity. The staffer described seeing Meghan's name on several guest lists between 2006 and 2010. She wasn't the biggest name, but she was recognizable, the source said. She came to these events often attached to someone. An oil heir, once. Another time, she was linked to a telecommunications billionaire from Russia. She wasn't loud. She carried herself well, very poised. But you could tell she was working the room. That's what a lot of the girls did. Photos from one such party, long removed from the internet, allegedly showed Meghan lounging on the deck of a private yacht in Capri with a small group, including a known Arab investor, a mid-level Hollywood producer, and several other women later identified as models or aspiring actresses. The image circulated briefly before vanishing, likely scrubbed by PR teams working overtime. But several screenshots, still saved by vigilant online sleuths, reappeared in recent weeks as these accusations gained traction. Another online post from 2013, long before Meghan entered royal life, described her as a regular at summer boat parties in Cannes and the Emirates. While the original post was dismissed at the time as petty gossip, the person behind it has now resurfaced under the pseudonym Mlux, giving an interview to an alternative media podcast. They claimed, Meghan was always nice, always polished. But she wasn't there for the sailing. She was there for the access. The goal was to be seen, to be photographed next to the right person. And she was good at it. Much of the debate centers around how these appearances were funded. Meghan, in interviews, suggested she worked side jobs to pay for her travels and early career hustle. Calligraphy lessons, freelance gigs, and suitcase modeling among them. But as financial records show, some of her vacations and appearances coincided with events that were tightly guarded and populated only by invitation. The kind of events that rarely include struggling actresses unless they're brought along for a specific reason. Insiders describe the hierarchy of the yacht girl economy. At the top were the celebrity companions, women with modest fame who brought legitimacy to the party. Below them, aspiring models and actresses hoping to break in. And beneath that, anonymous faces hired simply to fill space. Meghan, they say, played the second tier perfectly. She wasn't quite famous yet, but she was cultured, well-spoken, and understood the etiquette of elite events. She wasn't someone who'd get drunk and embarrass herself, said one informant. She was strategic, quiet, and always left with a new number in her phone. The question now is whether this past, assuming it's true, was deliberately hidden or merely reframed to fit the narrative of a modern duchess. Meghan supporters argue that even if she attended such events, that alone does not equate to wrongdoing. They point to systemic sexism, the double standard in judging women for how they climb social and career ladders, and the desperation many actors face in early careers. Women aren't allowed to network the same way men do, one commentator noted. When a man attends elite golf tournaments to court investors, it's seen as savvy. When a woman attends a yacht party, she's labeled for life. However, critics argue that the issue isn't what Meghan did to survive or thrive, but whether she misrepresented her history while building a public image founded on transparency, hardship, and virtue. Meghan frequently described herself as a victim of the media, as someone who had earned her place through integrity and compassion. If she knowingly omitted critical parts of her past to present a polished persona, then public trust becomes the issue, not the events themselves. What makes this situation even more volatile is the intersection of timing and silence. Meghan's team has refused to comment on the Yacht Girl allegations, instead choosing to ignore them altogether. No lawsuits have been filed against websites or forums where the rumors first took root. PR specialists say this silence is intentional. It avoids lending legitimacy to the claims. But in the court of public opinion, especially with Weinstein's explosive remarks resurfacing, the absence of a response is now being interpreted by many as suspect. Adding to the controversy, an old email exchange leaked from an assistant to a fashion PR agent dating back to 2011 mentioned Meghan being booked for a private yacht event during the Venice Film Festival. The message was vague, containing only time zones, appearance fees, and travel instructions. Still, it aligns with other pieces of the puzzle, suggesting not only a pattern but a paper trail. If the Yacht Girl claims are proven true, the implications for Meghan's standing are enormous. Beyond reputational damage, it could impact her future in media, endorsements, and activism. More importantly, it could fracture the already fragile relationship she has with both the British public and the American institutions she's been aligning with, such as nonprofits, entertainment producers, and political campaigners. Authenticity, after all, is currency. And if that's gone, what remains? For Prince Harry, the potential betrayal is both public and personal. His decision to step back from royal duties was, in part, to protect Meghan from what he described as relentless harassment and false narratives. But what if the narrative wasn't false? What if it was merely incomplete, curated, revised, and sanitized to pass public scrutiny? Sources close to Harry say he has entered a period of quiet retreat. There are rumors of therapy, long walks on the Montecito estate, and growing tension between the couple. One palace insider whispered he was warned, quietly, discreetly, before the wedding. People tried to tell him, but he believed love conquers all. Ultimately, the truth about Meghan's alleged Yacht Girl past may never be confirmed in full. But the resurgence of these claims, paired with the credibility of their source and the timing of their release, means they cannot be ignored any longer. They've already shaken the foundation of the public persona Meghan built so carefully. And as more people come forward, more files are leaked, and more digital traces are uncovered, one thing becomes clear: the past always has a way of catching up. When the news broke, Prince Harry was in the middle of what sources close to him describe as a quiet weekend at his Montecito estate. The Duke of Sussex, already known for his emotional depth and fierce protectiveness of his family, was blindsided. The allegations were not coming from gossip blogs or anonymous Twitter accounts. This time, they had the weight of a disgraced but undeniably connected former Hollywood mogul behind them, Harvey Weinstein. The gravity of the claim that Meghan Markle had a hidden past tied to yacht parties and high-end networking arrangements with a transactional undertone was reportedly too shocking for Harry to process all at once. For a man who has always bristled at media intrusion and personal scandal, this moment shattered a sense of control he had fought so hard to preserve. Inside sources say Harry's first instinct was to shield Meghan. That has always been his reflex, going back to the earliest days of their relationship. From the moment their romance became public, Harry adopted a defensive stance, launching official statements condemning abuse and harassment, and declaring that the press had crossed a line with Meghan that was reminiscent of what his mother, Princess Diana, endured. But this situation was different. This was not a tabloid speculation or a racist undertone veiled in headlines. This was a direct and damning quote from someone who knew the underbelly of Hollywood better than most. Weinstein's statements weren't vague or symbolic. They were clinical, specific, and devastating. According to a longtime friend of Harry's from Eton, who spoke to a London-based royal reporter under condition of anonymity, Harry was physically sick when he first read the unsealed statements. He couldn't believe it. He paced the house for hours, asking questions Meghan wouldn't answer directly. She kept insisting it was all lies, smear tactics from a convicted monster. But something in her voice, the way she avoided eye contact, made him hesitate for the first time. Those closest to Harry describe a man caught between two versions of his wife: the loving partner who stood by him through royal exile and fatherhood, and the woman whose past he may have never truly understood. And that realization alone has created a rift, one not just between husband and wife, but within Harry himself. On one side stands the soldier prince who once led troops in Afghanistan, who has prided himself on resilience and loyalty. On the other, the vulnerable son still grieving his mother's loss, constantly afraid of betrayal and manipulation. Royal experts say Harry's silence since the story emerged is unusually telling. In previous instances where Meghan faced media attacks, such as the tabloid lawsuit with the Mail on Sunday or the controversial Oprah interview, Harry was quick to speak, defend, and retaliate. His public statements have always carried urgency and fury, filled with deeply personal language. This time, however, there's been nothing. No press release. No social media message. Not even a subtle statement from one of their shared charities. "He's broken," said one former palace aide. Not just because of what's being said, but because he doesn't know if he's being told the truth by the one person he trusted more than anyone else. The shock is compounded by the context. Harry has repeatedly framed his break from the royal family as a moral stance, leaving behind tradition to protect his wife and children from the toxicity of media scrutiny and institutional coldness. He uprooted his life, forfeited royal duties, titles, and financial privileges to start anew in California. The narrative was one of sacrifice for love. But if that love was based on half-truths, or worse, manipulative omissions, then the foundation of that entire sacrifice is now crumbling. One of Harry's friends from his days in the military reportedly reached out privately and asked a brutally direct question: "Did she ever tell you everything?" According to insiders, that question hit Harry hard. He began revisiting events from their early courtship, times when Meghan would casually brush off inquiries about her past, frame ex-boyfriends as obstacles, and describe her journey in broad, inspiring terms that avoided too much detail. There's also talk that Harry may be seeking professional counseling again. Friends familiar with the couple's inner circle said Meghan urged him to block out the noise, but Harry insisted he needed to speak with someone professionally, not about the press, but about trust. He doesn't know what's real anymore, the source said. He's questioning everything: how they met, how quickly they got serious, the Oprah interview. It's like watching someone deconstruct their entire life in real time. What makes the situation more complex is Harry's long-standing guilt. He has often spoken about feeling guilt over his mother's death, guilt over not protecting her, guilt over the press circus that consumed her. That guilt, experts believe, has made him hypersensitive to any perceived threat to Meghan. But now, with Weinstein's allegations, the threat isn't just external, it's internal. It's not about the press spinning a narrative, it's about whether he's been told the truth by the person he stood against the world for. And yet, Harry cannot easily walk away. Divorce in the royal family, especially under such scandalous conditions, carries tremendous weight. For Harry, it would mean admitting to the world that he was deceived. It would hand ammunition to every critic who said he was impulsive, naive, and easily manipulated. It would also mean emotional devastation, publicly unraveling the very life he chose over his royal birthright. Behind the scenes, palace insiders say that King Charles has been kept informed of Harry's emotional state. Although their relationship has been strained, there remains a line of communication, reportedly through Prince William's private secretary. Charles, ever the strategist, is said to be watching closely but refusing to intervene. He knows Harry has to come to terms with this on his own, one senior royal correspondent noted. Any gesture from the crown would be perceived as either gloating or conditional, and that could push Harry further away. There are also whispers that Harry reached out quietly to a former royal aide, a woman who worked for Queen Elizabeth and had once advised Harry on matters of press protocol. According to leaks from royal staffers, he asked her a single question: "Did anyone know and not tell me?" Her answer, though discreet, was chilling. Some had concerns, but we couldn't prove anything. This realization has deepened Harry's isolation. For all his attempts to start anew in the United States, he remains caught between two worlds. The royal family he left behind and the American dream he thought he built with Meghan. Now, both seem precarious. His trust has been rattled, his love tested, and his future unclear. Public reaction has also not made this easier. While some supporters continue to believe in the couple's unity, others are turning critical. Social media, once flooded with admiration, is now filled with side-by-side comparisons, timeline analyses, and subtle mockery. He gave up the crown for this, one viral tweet asked. This is what happens when you marry someone who's writing a script, not telling a story, said another. And yet, Harry has always prided himself on resilience. Those who know him say that if anyone can weather this storm, it's him. But to do so, he must first confront the hardest question of all, not whether Meghan lied, but why he believed her so completely. That reckoning may be private. Or it may unfold in public as more details surface, more photos are released, and more names step forward. Regardless, the image of Harry as the fiercely loyal husband shielding his wife from the world has changed. He's no longer just a defender. He is now a man in doubt, facing the possibility that the greatest betrayal came not from the press, but from the person he gave everything up for. As the accusations grew louder and Harvey Weinstein's shocking deposition quotes gained traction online, all eyes turned to Meghan Markle. The Duchess of Sussex, known for her meticulous control over her public image and an often assertive media strategy, was suddenly engulfed in a crisis unlike anything she had faced before. This was not a social media skirmish. It wasn't tabloid gossip she could ignore until it died down. These were deeply personal, career-damaging allegations linked to one of the most reviled figures in recent Hollywood history. And the response, or lack thereof, from Meghan and her camp triggered more questions than it answered. The first thing the public noticed was silence. Days passed without any official statement, denial, or press outreach. Meghan, who had in previous years quickly clapped back at tabloids and even taken legal action over articles concerning her personal letters and her children's privacy, remained publicly mute. This quiet was uncharacteristic. For someone whose public image has always rested on empowerment, clarity, and agency, the sudden retreat felt like a strategic calculation or a retreat under pressure. Observers in the media landscape speculated that her silence might be part of a larger legal consultation. Some suggested she was meeting with her attorneys to assess the risk of defamation litigation. But as legal experts quickly noted, pursuing legal action against Weinstein or any media outlet publishing his words would be a double-edged sword. Filing a lawsuit would open the door to discovery, meaning Meghan's private records, old emails, text messages, photographs, and possibly travel documents could be subpoenaed. In other words, in trying to silence the accusation, she might end up validating them, or, worse, unearthing further damaging details. A media strategist familiar with Meghan's PR team stated, "They know the risk. This isn't like suing a tabloid over a misquoted letter. If she goes to court over this, they'll come for her entire past. That's why the strategy now seems to be a kind of controlled silence. Ride out the storm, distract the public, and hope the attention shifts." And distract they did. Just as public interest in Weinstein's deposition began to peak, Meghan made a surprise appearance at a charity event in Los Angeles. She wore a conservative outfit, no red carpet, no interviews, just photographs of her smiling while hugging children and speaking with organizers. The coverage from friendly outlets like People magazine and Hello focused entirely on her philanthropic efforts, deliberately ignoring the swirling controversy. It was a familiar tactic, one often used by celebrities during scandal: drown the narrative with positive imagery, draw focus back to humanitarian work, and appeal to public sympathy. But the timing didn't go unnoticed. Critics argued that her appearance felt staged, even desperate. One online comment read, "Every time Meghan's past catches up, she hugs a child, smiles for a camera, and hopes we forget. Not this time." Still, Meghan's team didn't remain completely silent. A close source, quoted by an unnamed journalist in Entertainment Weekly, claimed that the Duchess was deeply hurt by the baseless attacks and dangerous falsehoods being circulated online. The source continued, "Meghan has never been associated with the things being said. This is just another attempt by powerful men to silence and discredit a woman who refused to play by their rules." That quote carried her signature framing. Meghan has always positioned herself as a feminist standing against powerful institutions, be it the monarchy, the media, or Hollywood. Even before her marriage, she often spoke about the challenges of being a biracial woman in an industry dominated by white narratives. This time, the framing suggested she was once again a target, this time of a man now facing life in prison for abusing women. It was a powerful defense, but it also raised eyebrows, because the defense didn't directly deny the details. There was no denial that she had attended yacht parties. No denial that she may have moved in circles with billionaires, producers, and foreign dignitaries. No specific refutation of the $100 per hour quote. Just vague references to falsehoods and attempts to discredit. For those paying close attention, this kind of language looked like calculated ambiguity, a way to sound strong without risking a lie that could be legally challenged later. Royal commentators quickly picked up on this. In a panel discussion on GB News, one commentator put it bluntly, "She didn't say it didn't happen. She just said it's a smear. That's not the same thing." The situation was further muddied by resurfaced footage from an old interview Meghan gave while promoting her lifestyle blog The Tick. In the clip, she was asked about her journey in Hollywood and whether she had ever compromised to get ahead. Meghan laughed, sipped her drink, and replied, "Let's just say I've seen how the game works, but I found my own path." The clip, largely forgotten at the time, now took on a darker tone. Was it a clever nod to networking? Or an admission veiled in charm? Adding fuel to the fire were the reactions, or lack thereof, from Meghan's former friends and colleagues. No one from the Suits cast came forward in her defense. Her longtime stylist remained silent. Even celebrities like Serena Williams and Oprah Winfrey, who have previously spoken in support of Meghan, offered no public statements. This silence from her inner circle was interpreted by many as a sign of caution, or worse, quiet distancing. In social media spaces, the public became divided. Some followers passionately defended Meghan, arguing that the accusations reeked of misogyny and that Weinstein, a convicted predator, should not be taken seriously. Others believed that while Weinstein was loathsome, his proximity to the inner workings of Hollywood gave him insight few others had. One viral tweet summarized this sentiment: "Just because a monster says something doesn't mean it's false. Sometimes monsters know what other monsters do." Meanwhile, Meghan's online supporters mobilized. Hashtags like #WeStandWithMeghan and #ProtectBlackWomen began trending, though they were met with pushback. Critics argued that playing the race or gender card in this context was deflective, not defensive. "This isn't about color," one writer noted. "It's about character, and whether she was honest with her husband, her fans, and the institutions that welcomed her." In an unexpected twist, a former associate of Meghan's from her charity days came forward anonymously. In a conversation with an independent UK journalist, she recalled Meghan once describing yacht parties as some of the best networking opportunities a girl could get. Though the associate clarified that Meghan never implied anything scandalous, the quote still painted a picture of calculated ambition and social engineering. "She wasn't wild or reckless," the source added. "She was just incredibly focused. She always had an endgame." This revelation fits a pattern Meghan's critics have long claimed. That she reinvented herself multiple times: model, actress, blogger, philanthropist, and finally, Duchess. And that with each reinvention came a shedding of the past, a rewriting of the personal narrative to suit a new audience. That in itself is not unusual. Many public figures reframe their image. But in Meghan's case, the stakes are higher because of her chosen platform. She didn't just marry a prince. She challenged an entire monarchy, called out a global media machine, and became a symbol of change. With that visibility comes scrutiny. And now that scrutiny is razor-sharp. Behind closed doors, sources say Meghan is struggling to maintain control of the situation. One report from a Hollywood insider suggests she feels betrayed by Weinstein, furious that someone she never directly worked with would dredge up connections from over a decade ago. Another report claims she's considering a sit-down interview to set the record straight, though advisors are reportedly urging her to wait. Any misstep now could make things worse, one media expert warned. She's walking on glass. For now, Meghan continues her public appearances with a smile that seems thinner than usual. She posts motivational quotes, visits nonprofits, and avoids any event that might spark press questions. But the shadow cast by the allegations is long, and her silence, though strategic, is beginning to erode the trust of some of her supporters. Ultimately, Meghan's defense may not come through a single statement, but through slow, deliberate efforts to reframe the story. She may lean on charity work, new podcast appearances, and alliances with trusted journalists. She may wait for the news cycle to shift, or she may decide to speak out in full, though if she does, the public will expect more than just generalities. They will want answers. Specific, unequivocal, and clear. Of all the statements emerging from Harvey Weinstein's deposition, none struck a chord of raw, international interest more powerfully than his blunt assertion she was charging $100 an hour. That was the going rate for her attention. With that single line, the scandal transcended Hollywood gossip and ventured into damning, deeply personal territory. It wasn't just a vague accusation about Meghan Markle's past involvement in elite social circles. It was a specific dollar amount attached to her presence, an allegation that, if true, could devastate her credibility and reshape public perception in irreversible ways. What did Weinstein mean by $100 an hour? Was he referring to a modeling gig, a social appearance fee, or something far more insidious? The context was ambiguous, but not without implication. He presented it as a well-known fact among certain Hollywood insiders, suggesting that Meghan's time and company during high-profile events or on private yachts wasn't just casual networking, it was a compensated arrangement. To the average person, $100 an hour may not sound outrageous. In the entertainment world, it can even seem modest. But context is everything. In elite social environments where beauty, access, and discretion are traded like currency, that dollar figure isn't just financial, it's symbolic. It implies a transaction, a service, and above all, intent. For Meghan, whose public persona has always leaned on grace, charity, and self-worth, being reduced to an hourly fee is not just an insult, it's a narrative reversal. The idea that Meghan charged for companionship is not without historical precedent in entertainment circles. Several high-profile women, now celebrated actresses and social figures, have been accused, sometimes credibly, of accepting fees for private appearances, dinners, or companionship at events hosted by oligarchs, oil magnates, and film producers. These arrangements, often orchestrated through agents or handlers, skirt the legal definition of escorting, operating instead in a morally gray space. They are technically legal, yet understood to involve silent expectations, blurred roles, and often transactional intimacy. Was Meghan among them? Weinstein certainly thinks so. According to insiders familiar with the deposition, Weinstein reportedly expanded on his claim by saying, "She wasn't out there hustling on street corners. No, it was much more refined, discreet, the kind of thing everyone in the business knew about, but never said out loud. She knew how to play the game, and she played it well." Though no invoices, receipts, or concrete documentation have yet surfaced tying Meghan to any such transactions, Weinstein's statement ignited a wave of investigative curiosity. Bloggers and independent journalists began digging through online archives, looking for modeling agency portfolios, old freelance job listings, and any testimonial that might hint at paid social arrangements. While nothing definitive has emerged, there are now numerous anecdotal reports suggesting Meghan accepted payment for private party appearances in her pre-suits days, particularly during trips to Europe and the UAE. One such claim came from a former Dubai-based concierge using the alias Farid, who spoke anonymously to an Australian outlet. Farid stated it was standard. Girls came in from LA and London. Agencies would arrange everything: flights, hotels, even clothing. The girls weren't call girls in the traditional sense, but they were paid to be there, to socialize with VIPs, and yes, sometimes more. Meghan's name was floated more than once, especially for the spring yacht gatherings. She had a reputation for being classy but accessible. The $100 an hour talk was actually on the low end for girls like her. Some got 5 times that. While Farid's claims cannot be independently verified, the pattern is hard to ignore. Several sources, many speaking anonymously, describe Meghan as someone who moved fluidly between elite events, networking with billionaires and high-placed producers while maintaining a carefully curated image. She was never sloppy, never overt, said a Los Angeles event planner. But she always left with a contact. She didn't waste time on small talk. She knew what she wanted. These characterizations may be anecdotal, but the consistency across testimonies is hard to dismiss. They paint a picture of a woman who, while building her career, strategically placed herself in proximity to power and may have accepted compensation for doing so. But Meghan's defenders argue there's a difference between being paid for presence and being paid for intimacy. In Hollywood, Celebrities regularly command appearance fees. Influencers are paid to attend brand launches, parties, and galas. Meghan, as an aspiring actress and social figure with a growing presence, could very well have earned money in this way without engaging in anything immoral. "This is a smear campaign," said one anonymous former colleague. "They're twisting the facts to suggest something salacious." Meghan was paid for events just like any up-and-coming actress. That doesn't make her a yacht girl. It makes her savvy. Yet the $100 figure continues to circulate with an almost viral momentum. It's been cited in YouTube breakdowns, Twitter threads, and online exposés. It has become a talking point not because it's large, but because it's so specific, so ordinary. It strips away glamour. It breaks the illusion. It's not the fantasy rate of a high-end escort in a spy thriller. It's mundane. It sounds real. Adding complexity to the issue is Meghan's carefully crafted image of female empowerment. Through her speeches at UN forums, her podcast interviews, and even her children's book, she has cultivated an identity rooted in dignity, self-respect, and moral clarity. For someone whose brand revolves around self-worth, the idea that she once accepted hourly fees for appearances at elite parties undercuts her entire narrative. Royal commentator Amanda Drayton put it plainly, "This isn't about morality. It's about transparency." If Meghan had once said, "Yes, I did promotional events to support myself while acting," people might forgive it. But she built a reputation on being above this kind of hustle. If this turns out to be true, it's not just hypocrisy, it's betrayal. Meanwhile, palace aides have reportedly remained silent on the matter. Buckingham Palace has not issued a single word in connection to the growing controversy, and royal protocol suggests they likely never will. But internally, sources suggest the mood is tense. A member of the Lord Chamberlain's office allegedly remarked during a private dinner that the silence will become deafening if proof ever surfaces. Meghan's husband, Prince Harry, is also said to be wrestling with the implications of the claim. One source within their Montecito circle claims Harry asked Meghan directly about the $100 an hour statement and whether there was any truth to it. Meghan reportedly brushed it off as an insult that doesn't deserve a response. But Harry, according to the same source, didn't look convinced. "He wants to believe her," the insider said. But this isn't a tabloid headline. It's a direct quote from someone who lived in that world. It's harder to ignore. Legal experts have weighed in on what Meghan's options might be. Defamation is difficult to prove, particularly when dealing with public figures. Meghan would need to demonstrate not only that Weinstein's statements were false, but that they were made with actual malice. Given Weinstein's legal status and damaged credibility, some believe a lawsuit could succeed. Others warn it could backfire catastrophically. "You can win a defamation suit and still lose the PR war," one attorney said, "especially if it opens the door to more discovery." And then there's the broader question of how much this matters in the public eye. To some, the allegation will always be nothing more than an unverified smear. To others, it's a confirmation of long-held suspicions. But one thing is certain. The $100 an hour line has now entered the public consciousness, and no amount of positive PR will erase it easily. It's become more than a quote. It's become a symbol of doubt, of inconsistency, of the gap between who Meghan has told the world she is and who she might actually be. Within the towering walls of the British monarchy, silence has often been the preferred defense. For centuries, royal scandals have come and gone under the shadow of discretion, with the phrase "never complain, never explain" serving as an unwritten law. But with the rise of Meghan Markle and the dramatic fallout since her and Prince Harry's departure from royal duties, that veil has begun to thin. Now, amid the Harvey Weinstein bombshell and the swirling allegations about Meghan's past, murmurs are emerging from behind palace doors. Royal insiders, some retired, others still loosely tied to the institution, are speaking out, not with official statements, but with carefully chosen words, private briefings, and guarded disclosures to trusted journalists. The consensus? Many within the royal household had long harbored concerns about Meghan Markle. But now, those concerns are beginning to look like warnings no one wanted to heed. According to one longtime royal aide who worked under both Queen Elizabeth II and King Charles, discussions about Meghan's background began as early as 2016, shortly after Prince Harry informed close advisors that he was dating a lovely American actress. At first, it seemed innocent enough. Meghan was described as charming, attractive, and different from any woman Harry had dated before. But once her name hit the headlines, background checks began, not out of suspicion, but as part of standard royal procedure. It's not unusual, the aide said. Whenever someone becomes involved with a senior royal, even casually, we look into them. We have to. It's about protecting the institution, not prying into personal matters. The initial reports, according to this source, revealed no immediate red flags. Meghan had no criminal history, no dramatic lawsuits, and nothing that screamed scandal. However, what emerged was a curious vagueness surrounding parts of her early career. Gaps in timelines. Undocumented trips. A pattern of rapid social climbing that raised quiet eyebrows. At the time, these were chalked up to the entertainment industry's quirks, until questions about Meghan's yacht connections started circulating within royal inner circles. We heard whispers, yes. Another senior courtier confirmed. Nothing confirmed. But people in London society had their reservations. Some mentioned her attending certain events where young women were. Well, let's say they weren't there for the wine. At first, Harry refused to entertain any doubt. According to insiders, he viewed all skepticism as classist, racist, or rooted in outdated royal snobbery. One courtier recalls a heated moment during a family meeting where Harry reportedly snapped at a senior aide, saying, "She's my partner, not a problem to be solved." That emotional response shut down further inquiries, at least publicly. But behind closed doors, the unease persisted. Several palace officials reportedly advised Harry to take things slowly with Meghan, citing inconsistencies in her past and an observable tendency to control the narrative. According to a former staff member close to William and Kate, even the Prince and Princess of Wales had their doubts early on, not necessarily because of race or status, but because of Meghan's speed in escalating the relationship. She moved fast, the staffer explained. From casual dating to meeting the family, to moving into Kensington Palace, it was all compressed into a matter of months. That's unusual, even for royals. And when questions were raised about some of her past relationships or business ventures, the answers were often vague or deflective. Those within the palace who voiced concerns found themselves sidelined. Some were quietly reassigned. Others were accused, both publicly and internally, of being unfriendly or prejudiced. It created a chilling effect. Few dared to speak openly about Meghan, even when irregularities began to mount. One now-retired royal advisor put it bluntly. "We knew if you asked too many questions, you'd be accused of being a racist or a snob." That shut down a lot of necessary conversations. But now, with Weinstein's explosive statements dragging Meghan's past back into the spotlight, former palace insiders are finally beginning to admit that the warning signs were always there. They were simply ignored or silenced under the weight of public pressure and Harry's emotional allegiance. One of the most revealing disclosures came from an ex-communications officer who had managed press relations during Meghan's early royal days. He claimed that several UK media outlets had approached the palace with stories connecting Meghan to elite Middle Eastern parties, yacht excursions, and vague event appearances in Dubai, Cannes, and Monaco. The palace, eager to protect Harry's then-girlfriend and later wife, shut the stories down. "We issued stern denials, demanded retractions, and leaned heavily on personal privacy arguments," he said. "In hindsight, we might have done too good a job at burying it." Further, a staff member once responsible for helping Meghan prepare for official engagements shared an anecdote that, while seemingly minor, now feels ominously telling. "She would always ask about optics," the staffer recalled. "Not just protocol, but how to control the story. She was very aware of camera angles, lighting, media coverage. And when asked to explain certain aspects of her past, old blog posts, friends from her modeling days, she would get very defensive, or change the subject." Another source involved in planning Meghan and Harry's wedding said there was confusion and concern among senior planners when it came to who was invited from Meghan's past. Very few people from her early adult life received invitations. Names on the original draft guest list were crossed off without explanation. Some who had been close to Meghan before her rise to fame never heard from her again. There was an air of reinvention, one planner noted. It was as if she wanted to start her life from the moment she met Harry and erase everything before that. Palace staff were also reportedly instructed not to respond to questions about Meghan's former boyfriends, acting career, or modeling assignments unless specifically cleared by senior officials. "There was a wall," one assistant press secretary said. and anyone who tried to look over it got burned. Now, as Weinstein's deposition brings those forbidden questions to the forefront, some within the royal household feel vindicated. Not because they wished harm upon Meghan, but because they believe the institution could have avoided scandal had their concerns been taken seriously. "We weren't trying to sabotage Harry's relationship," one former aide insisted. "We were trying to protect the crown. And Harry, too." Yet not all voices within the palace are critical. One former footman who served during Queen Elizabeth II's reign recalls the Queen offering Meghan a quiet kind of grace. Her Majesty knew things, of course, but she believed in second chances. She believed people could rise above their past. What she couldn't tolerate was dishonesty. If Meghan lied to Harry, or to the public, that's something the Queen would not have easily forgiven. Among the younger staff and new hires within the royal household, there's a growing sense of frustration, not just with Meghan, but with the lingering aftermath of Harry and Meghan's departure. Many feel that the couple's public accusations against the crown, particularly regarding racism and cruelty, were an unfair caricature of what actually happened. With each new scandal, more staffers are speaking out, off the record, but increasingly confident that history will show the palace wasn't the villain. "It's exhausting," one palace security officer commented. "They left, they trashed the family, and now every scandal that breaks is somehow still the royal family's fault."